Hello and welcome to day 2 of Big Data London. So thanks everybody for coming, for everybody who's returned from yesterday, for everybody who's come and set foot in the hall for the first time today. It's a pleasure to have you and I hope you enjoy your day. We've got 2 great keynotes for you this morning, starting with a fireside chat with data leaders from ITV and Specsavers. So without further ado, I'll pass you on to the chair of that panel, over to you, Courtney. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Really excited to be here today. My name is Courtney Jucht. I'm an SA director at Databricks, and what that means is I look after a team of brilliant solution architects that help our customers get value from data. So I'm excited to be here today with Clemence and Helen, and I'm going to turn it over to them to give an introduction. Clemence?
Oh, thanks. Hello, everybody. So my name is Clemence. I'll spare you the last name for the non-French speaker. I'm from ITV. If you don't know ITV, come see me afterwards. I'll tell you all about Coronation Street. My role at ITV is Director of Data Innovation. So really what it means is I take care of all the tech and the data. So from the platform, the data engineering, the data science, machine learning engineering, etc. And so, yeah, I've got the pleasure to do that for ITV.
Hi, I'm Helen Mannion. I work for Specsavers, looking after global data. I joined about 3 years ago specifically to run their data transformation program, but my background is in data analytics, working for financial services, telcos, insurance companies.
Great, thank you. So I had the pleasure of chatting with Clemence and Helen last week, and I think this is going to be a great conversation because obviously they come from 2 quite different businesses, different backgrounds, and have some really great perspectives on certain things. So Clemence, let's start with you. Could you just give us, just to start off the conversation, kind of high-level strategy for ITV and how your team is aligned to supporting that today?
Yeah, so the overall strategy for ITV is still more than TV, etc., creative, amazing content for audience, etc. So when we dig a little bit deeper and we go into more what it means for data, it's about being data-driven in everything we do. So from the content, from the platform, everything really. And so our strategy started about 1.5 years ago when I joined and our CDO joined and the rest of the team joined as well. And it was a bit of a new strategy for us. And it was all about saying, data is all about what value we bring for the business. And I know it sounds like a bit of buzzword, and nobody is going to say, I'll come to bring no value to the business. But really it was about putting a number with a pound sign next to it and say, this is the value of that specific project. And from there, it was, okay, how do we do that? And the transformation has been really changing a little bit of the mindset of, I want this, I want that dashboard, I want that number, versus, I'm in this situation right now, and I want to be in this situation that is better because it's bringing us more value, really. And that's the transformation here. Because it doesn't matter, ultimately, and I'm sometimes sad when I have to say that, it doesn't really matter ultimately what's the tech behind it and how we do it to our stakeholder. It's all about the value we bring to them. Obviously, the tech, how we do it matters to me, but that's always that for the stakeholder, it's all about the value. So that's been our strategy. We started 1.5 years ago. We're well underway, and we took the route of a data mesh. So anybody who wants to talk data mesh, let me know. We now have a functional data mesh across ITV. We worked with a few different parts of the business, marketing, commercial advertising, product side as well. So that's where we are, and that's where we come from, really.
Perfect. Thank you, Clemence. And I did forget to say what we're going to do. We'll have a chat for about 30 minutes, and we will open it up to the audience for questions in the last 15. So anything that Helen or Clemence are saying, I'm sure the audience will hopefully have some great questions for them at the end as well, and we can cover as many of those as we can. Helen, tell us a bit about Specsavers and how your team is working to support the strategy today.
When I joined Specsavers 3.5 years ago, they were a very immature data organisation. So we are going on quite a significant data transformation. We set out 3 years ago with 3 core objectives, which are ultimately the same 3 core objectives that we're delivering on today. The nuance and the language and how we talk about it has changed, but fundamentally they're the same thing. The first is really building a solid foundation, so we've completely re-platformed. We've embedded Databricks and some other tool sets in that environment. The second, I suppose, also what we consider within that solid foundation is providing a range of different assets. So the platform, the tools, the assets, community, to help support people. The second is really around enabling people across the organisation. Today we talk about, within our organisation, we talk about devolving responsibility for data. And by that we're really meaning not only analytics, but also responsibility for data quality and data management across the organisation. So a huge effort to upskill and change mindset. And the third pillar is all around delivering value. So it's very similar to what Clemence was saying, really. But we want to firmly underpin the organisation's annual plans. We want to be a firm part of our strategic future. And we want to, as well as provide commercial benefit, we want to, from a Specsavers context, save site and make lives better through hearing and site improvement.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I love those stories and kind of reading your mission statement on site. So, Clemence, thanks both for that great overview. I think, the next question I'd like to drill into a little bit is where you are on the maturity curve. So at Databricks, we kind of referenced the maturity curve, and I think everyone probably has some kind of version of this. I don't have an image, but if you can imagine, kind of on that left-hand side, it's basically just getting the data, being able to do the reporting, and really moving and advancing from, okay, what did happen to what will happen, so being more predictive, and then that ideal state is really getting to more of that automation and really leveraging advanced capabilities like machine learning and AI. So where would you say you are on that journey today?
So for us, we similarly to Helen, we had to do a lot of replatforming as well. So we started from scratch. That's actually why we brought in Databricks, because for us it was kind of we can build it in-house, we can buy it. Ultimately, buying it's probably going to get you where you want to be faster. So that was the big part. So now we have the platform. We have that concept of a mesh in place, both from the technical perspective, but also from the organizational perspective, because data mesh is not just a technical approach, it's also having the right operating model around it. So we do have that, the right accountability, the right ownership. So that's part of that was the big first phase of it, really, and it was all about getting the data in the right place, right shape, etc. And we're working in what we call thin slice, like small, very agile ways. So obviously we don't have everything in place, but for the stakeholder we're working with, we have what we need. And so now we kind of we're stepping into the, okay, what can we do in terms of predictive? Our first big stakeholder is actually marketing. So as you can imagine, you all have the usual suspects in marketing around the churn, the attribution, the whatever. Everybody knows that anyway. But yeah, so that's where we are. It's really we're starting really stepping into that ML world more than anything else.
Great, thank you. And Helen, how about yourself and Specsavers?
So, as I said, sort of 3.5 years ago, we were incredibly immature data organisation. We didn't even have a reporting platform for the size and scale. That still shocks me. It was only probably about 6 months ago when the board asked me, where are we on a maturity scale? Where are we on a scale of 1 to 10 was the question. And to be honest, I answered in a very inarticulate way, very complicated. And so to almost take the piss out of myself, because it became a bit of a theme with the board where they'd ask me everything on a scale of 1 to 10. I decided to build a maturity curve on a scale of 1 to 10 and plot ourselves on where we were today and where I'd like us to be in 3 years' time. And actually, as we worked through it, we put ourselves at 2, which after 3.5 years, I think is, is still very low on the scale. But I think we have made a huge amount of progress over the last 3.5 years, and I couldn't be prouder of the team and the progress that they've made. But actually, fundamentally, I think that data journeys are hugely difficult to fully embed across the organization. And I almost feel like you need to, it's almost like be a little bit like the tortoise rather than the hare. And I'm a big believer in actually if you take project by project and slowly embed a bit of strategic initiatives along with delivering value, you will almost transform and evolve, but embed it really well at the same time. And that's ultimately what we're trying to achieve. We've done an awful lot of things in the last 3 years. Like we've re-platformed, we've got predictive modeling into CRM, we've got reporting out to all our stores. We've delivered and underpinned a huge amount of additional revenue across the organization. We've thousands of preventable, avoidable blindness. But we still effectively have a relatively fragmented organization with a huge amount of manual processes. It is not an optimized environment, and there are tons and tons more opportunities that we can get from utilizing data more effectively. And so I think 2 on the scale of 10 is probably a really fair justification for where we are today. But I suppose on the flip side, hugely exciting of what the potential is.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'd love to compare that against the curve that we use at Databricks as well and look at the 1 through 10. But one of the things I loved that you said earlier was, and I think that you've done quite well at Specsavers, is you want everyone in the business to be able to tell a data story. So that I think that's a great kind of grassroots way to ensure that everyone kind of understands what data is available, how they can use it. And whilst you've both mentioned Databricks, which is fabulous, obviously you're both customers. I think even from the vendor perspective, I think something that we tell our teams quite often is, put the tech to one side. Of course, we think Databricks is a phenomenal solution, but if the customer is not getting value, and you both have really mentioned that value story several times, so I think that's something it's really important, even from the vendor perspective, to remember. Speaking of stories, you both have some brilliant use cases and things that you've been able to do with data to actually deliver real outcomes and that pound sign that you mentioned to the business, Clemence. I think you have a great story around social marketing. Would you like to share that with the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, one of our first stakeholder was marketing for a lot of different reasons. That's a very interesting place. It's data heavy, and there's a lot of things we can do in there. And I think I'm not going to be able to give you a pound sign number, unfortunately, but what I can give you is what we built for them is a capability called Flex. Really, it's all about activation of the data. It's not enough to say, here's the data and you can query it that way. Most marketing managers are going to look at you and say, why do I care? What I want is a segment that makes sense for me that I can activate, and a way to activate them, and potentially fully automated situation. And also, while they might not yell about it, often they want to be compliant, because tomorrow they don't want to have that problem of saying why they contacted that person and not that person. And so really what we created around that Flex capability was automation, activation, self-service, and compliance. So it was all about that. And so I think the big headline is what would have taken them 3 months before to activate a segment on a channel like Facebook, Instagram, whatever you can think of, takes now 3 minutes. And I think, I'm not going to give you the punchline that goes with it, but just the effort in terms of manpower of doing that, or woman power, actually, it's a lot. And that's been our main use case. And it's value from both the stakeholder point of view, but also we have privacy lawyer that loves us. We've got, that kind of things is not it's actually quite important for us as well.
Yeah, no, that great point on the privacy lawyer. And yeah, 3 months to 3 minutes. So what are they doing with all their spare time now?
Well, more important things than what they were doing before in the 3 months, that's for sure. What they're doing more, we can scale, and the pound signs. At the end of the day, the value, it's all about what you can save.
Yep.
So less time doing something, what you can do new. So now that they have all that free time, they can do new campaign, they can do new type of segment, more evolved segments as well. And then the last one is the scale. If you can do in 3 minutes what you could do in 3 months, then imagine how many times you can do that in 3 months. I'm not going to do the calculation top of my head, but I'll let you do it on your phone. So that's really what it is about.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. And Helen, Specsavers, I know parts of the business were really affected during COVID. You have a brilliant example that, it's quite a simple but very powerful use case of how opticians use data during COVID. Can you share more about that, please?
This is one of my favourite stories of one of the things that we've delivered. So we put reporting out for clinicians and optometrists and directors, partners within stores. And one of the things that was in that report was the percentage of referrals. So it's a really simple stat. So this is the percentage of referrals of customers going to ophthalmologists, which is specialist eye doctors. And they noticed that in the first lockdown, when optometrists were only sort of seeing, emergency cases, that 66% of referrals reduced. And that piece of information wasn't picked up by us as a team, that was picked up by the clinicians who then started to make a case, sharing that with Glaucoma UK, the NHS, and other organisations to help ensure that in future lockdowns, routine eye appointments were still continued. Effectively, that saved thousands of people's sight from preventable eye loss, sight loss. But as well, it fundamentally made a massive impact for all optometrists across the country who were actually then able to undertake routine eye appointments. Effectively, massive difference to the organisation as well. So I think that the great thing about that story for me is the fact that it highlights when you put data in SMEs' hands who really understand that data and really understand the value that it can bring, that they can deliver something that you never thought they would. That data wasn't created for this eventuality with COVID. It was created to help them monitor how many people they were referring for a different case, but actually putting that knowledge in people's hands actually had an immense impact. And for us as an organisation, the thing that is most important to Specsavers is actually helping people with their sight and hearing. So the fact that actually for us in terms of the value cases, that is the best value case, that actually you're saving people's sight.
Yeah, that's pretty impactful. I mean, this is one of the favorite parts of my job is, hearing that the value that our customers do get from data. And I think, that's a really compelling story. So thank you. Let's switch gears. So next topic, this is near and dear to my heart as well as a hiring manager, and we may all get a selfish plug here because I believe we are all hiring at the moment. But obviously a key part of this is how do you hire the best talent? And I know both of you have grown your teams dramatically since joining Specsavers and ITV. And in fact, the timing is really good because I literally saw it yesterday. So we have sponsored, Databricks has sponsored a study that's just come out with MIT, and it was 600 global executives. And the number one thing that they recognized as an instrumental investment from now to 2025. The number one thing, ahead of data quality and infrastructure, there were several other choices that they were surveyed on, is talent and skills development. So, Helen, I know you've grown your team from, I think, about 5 to 50. What is your secret?
I mean, I think Specsavers plays a big part in that because they're a really great organisation to work for, and they've got a really, really lovely culture. I think for us as a team as well, we make a huge amount of effort to make sure that the culture within our team is really solid. And from my perspective, the most important thing for me is that my team are happy. Year on year, actually, on the surveys that we've done within our team, we ask them on a scale of 1 to 10, would you recommend your friends come and work within the team? And we score an average of 9. And that's been consistent year on year. And I think that that's testament to actually what a lovely place it is to work. And if you ask the team, they talk about how caring the team are, how helpful people are, how much we support their development. I think the other thing that we make big efforts on is to promote from within. I think Specsavers do that as a whole, but us as a data team do too. So we've been on a massive growth. After this next recruitment round, we'll be at circa 60. So we've grown 12 times in the space of 3.5 years. And actually 40% of our roles last year were recruited internally, either through promotions or through actually bringing in really skilled, really knowledgeable experts from across the organisation into our central team. And that, I can't tell you how valuable that is actually for a data programme, to have really, really good retail knowledge, really good supply chain knowledge sitting within your team when you're trying to deliver solutions that ultimately are going to help that part of the business. So it's an absolute win-win. And I think and that we try and do things a little bit differently, I would say, when we try and recruit as well. We've done a sort of LinkedIn live events. We try and attract talent in different ways. But I think front and foremost, I think we're a great place to work.
That's a great thing. And you have, because one of the things that stood out to me as well is the retention and the tenure that you have in a lot of the team as well. And I think
yes,
a lot of that is because of that promoting from within.
Yeah, and so our average tenure, when we look at the entire team, is 6 years. The programme's only been running 3.5 years, and our team's grown 12 times. So, you've got to have had people that have worked in the wider organisation for many, many years. And, that's partly because Specsavers is a great place to work. They've been there many years. But, yeah, a big part is because we recruit from within.
Yeah, great. And Clemence, how about you? I know you've grown dramatically as well. You've taken some different approaches that are really interesting as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the year and a half I've been there, we started with maybe 2 data engineers and a couple of other people, probably like around 5 people. We today have more than 50 people in the team, so we've grown massively as well. A lot of things you said actually resonate with me. So one is like, it's a very nice place to be, very, very good culture. And I think there's a couple of things for me. One is when you you have to make a compelling case. Guns where the data, and even more in data, people have choices. There's a lot of places that are hiring from data. So you got to make a compelling case of, it's not just about the money, etc. Don't get me wrong, I love the money, but it's, doing something I don't like for the money, I probably won't do it for very long. So you need to make sure that what you're doing, there's a vision behind it, and people are motivated by that vision. So I think that's one of the big things. Sharing my vision and having that transparency of what it means to be in data in ITV is super important. One of the things we've done is actually we promote from within when people are in the role for a more senior role, but when it comes to bringing people in, one of the strategy we took is bringing people from different industries, because we're very big on diversity, and I am very big on diversity as well, and it's all about, okay, how can we bring diversity from any kind of point of view? So one is, you all have that good old gender split, which is a bit of a, I'll make a plug here, because gender is a spectrum, so you can't really split it as well, but it is, like you need to have that breadth of gender as well, etc. But there's also industry-wise, we are, in our case, we are in media, but that doesn't mean I only need people in media. If I take somebody from retail, they're going to bring a completely different point of view on how to do things, and it's probably going to just make our stuff better, really. So that's really bringing different people from different industry, different social background, different educational background, etc. And then the last part is really around bring the talent pipeline. If you have 10, 12 data engineers to recruit, you're going to be able to bring some of them, but then you got to think about the future. How are you going to bring those 10 next year? Well, what we do is graduate schemes. So we bring in like 10 people for a year of graduate scheme, and in a year, we know we have 10 people that are going to be data engineers. And it brings a lot of things for us. Not only we have I always say when you bring graduates, they don't have bad habits that you have to unteach them. So that's always a good one. But also it brings the diversity, because when you finding a senior, platform engineer, data scientist, whatever role you want, there's already going to be bias in the more senior roles when it comes to diversity. When it comes from straight out of uni or before even uni, it's going to be a lot better when it comes to that, and you can actually get in a few years' time, you'll get that diversity because you created it already, and I think that's been a massive thing for us, really.
Yeah, I love the graduate scheme program as well. I think that's a great idea. All right, well, last question from me, and then we'll open it up to the audience. So hopefully some of you have some burning questions for Helen or Clemence. But we've kind of talked about where you are on the journey, some of the things that you're doing today, and how you've grown your teams. What's next? What are some of the things on your near-term roadmap that you can potentially share, or things that you're excited about for the future?
So in my case, there's always two things. It's kind of like you've got the pure technical aspect. So we've got a lot of automation. We've got a lot of automated governance, automated onboarding of products, etc. So I think there's a big piece around that, around the tech that we're going to bring, and seeing that vision I have in my head of what the platform should look like and how it should work for every different stakeholder and every different persona we have in the business that are using data is super important. So I'm super excited about that. The other side is as we step into that more machine learning world, as I was saying, I'm a big advocate of ethics and data for good. And that's one thing I really want to get right. And while we're starting just grazing at what it could look like, we already have a lot of principles that we want to put in place. We already have a lot of principles that we kind of share across the team, and we make sure that we have. And some of it are for compliance purposes. We need to be able to audit, etc. Some of it is just like, we can do it. We have all the tech we need to do that. We have all the data we need to do that. Should we do it? Is it not a problem to do that from a privacy perspective, or even from just a good old, would I be able to sleep tomorrow if I do that, is a nice thing. So I think that's kind of the two things I'm very excited about.
Well, that's great, thank you. Helen, how about yourself?
I think we've obviously still got an awful lot of foundations still to build out and embed. Things like, single customer view, we've started, but we've still got a lot more work, or building out a common data model. But I think that ultimately, and training programs and ethics and all of those things, better data management, etc., all on our list, and things that we know we need to get after to move ourselves up that maturity curve. But I think ultimately, I personally believe that data will add the most impact when it's really truly embedded with tech and digital. And that's ultimately, I think, where we need to get to, and a real focus on delivering data products that you can nurture and improve and evolve. And I think for individuals who are using those, it should be almost completely invisible that they're using data. I think that, obviously, I have actually wondered recently if I should try and count how many times I say data or insight or some other words that people in the business generally don't understand in a day. But the reality is that nobody cares about that. What they care about is actually delivering their outcomes. And I think data-driven organizations actually deliver data without people recognizing that they're using data or ML, and that's ultimately where we want to get to.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we'll open it up to the audience for any questions. Do we have mics? Thank you. Yep, got a few that way. This side might need more coffee, but think of a question.
Hi, it was good to hear that you were working towards embedding the data strategy into the IT strategy. How do you actually go about doing that? Because, like you identified, not everybody identifies or understands data. So how do you actually embed the data strategy within the IT strategy, and then get the support from the board that's required to make that transformation? Thank you.
I don't think it's easy, I would say, first off. I think that from my perspective, you need to start with the outcome. And I think that, ultimately it's about really understanding where it's going to impact in your customer journey or your operational models. You start from that point. And ultimately, the majority of those really big changes involve tech and they involve data. And I think if we almost need to stop talking about data. I know that sounds a bit unintuitive, but that is ultimately, I think, what we need to start to do as data professionals, and focus a lot more on the strategy, where people want to, where the businesses want to go, the actual things that they really want to do, and then work backwards from there.
I've got a question for Helen regarding the app that you provide to stores. You mentioned the great example of using it for on referrals. What else do you provide to stores, and how do they use it, and are there plans to expand it?
Even before our transformation journey, the MI team were providing an awful lot of information to stores. I think that actually we're in a situation where stores almost have information overload in reality, and I think that the future of actually store reporting and information is we're still obviously going to have reporting that we want them to tap into, but we want that to be super, super intuitive. I'm a big believer on, if it's a dashboard, less is more. We want people to look at the dashboard. We want people to completely understand it when they look at it, and we want them to know exactly what they do with that information. So the report that I talked about with referrals, actually we've laid it out mimicking our customer journey, because that's something that is so intuitive to the people in our stores. Before we launched it, we went through an entire program of UX testing. So we effectively proactively sent it out to people in stores and basically asked them questions, asked them to talk us through what they were seeing, you know, what their thoughts were, what they would do with it. And we've also put links, embedded links into the reports to SharePoint sites with what would you do with this piece of information if it's below target. What actions would we advise you to take? And I think that, personally, I think that that's the future of store reporting on the reporting side. But I think that, you know, on the other side, the future is embedding data and ML into their everyday tools. And having really insightful, really intuitive information. Like I say, they don't necessarily even think that they're using data or ML, but they are. And I think that that's ultimately what will drive really significant benefit.
Hi, morning, at the back. I'm at Eurostore and we've just implemented the segmentation and automated the data elements of that. I just picking on the, you know, where you mentioned about automating the marketing and the activation and that side of things. How do you automate the content so you've got the data that's automated? How do you go about making the content, you know, kind of a real-time automation so that you haven't got that bottleneck? Because I think that's one of the elements which can slow things down, I guess. Just want your thoughts on that side of it.
Yeah, dynamic content when it comes down to email is something that we haven't fully touched yet, but it's all about, some of it is about the tech, you know, finding the right tool that would enable you to do that, having the right CMS to make sure that you have the right assets, etc. I think the most important part is not about how many variants of an email you can do, is how do you test that it's actually, which one is better, etc. And I think what we're looking at in the near future is looking at experimentation a little bit more. So for now, it's kind of like, okay, we've got segment, we're sending emails to the right segment, so it's less people, more targeted. Okay, next step for us is how do we make it so we can, inside one segment, we can target responses, and we can target responses to a channel, an image, a color, you know, whatever it is. So I think it's experimentation. We're not there yet, but it's something we're thinking of for next year, for sure.
Hi there. Sorry, my question's for Helen. So with COVID and the subsequent kind of explosion in e-commerce sales, how do you find that affected kind of business priorities and the desire to implement things like data lake?
Specsavers have been going on a digital transformation simultaneously to their data transformation. An equivalent to me looking after digital joined pretty much the same week as I did, actually 3.5 years ago. I would say that that was pre-COVID. It was an important area for Specsavers as an organisation. I suppose for Specsavers, they've relied very much on people coming into stores because of that, maybe haven't invested as much in their digital infrastructure as maybe other organisations. But I think that, you know, for every organisation, really, no matter what you do, digital is an important part of that growth. And I think, you know, obviously, data goes hand in hand with that and needs to be fully entwined and embedded.
Hi, good morning. Do you believe in self-service data? And also, how do you enable a team to start self-serving data? And also like to know if you had any thoughts and any experience enabling your user group. Thank you. You know, devolving responsibility is one of our core pillars. So we want, you know, pretty much everyone in the organisation to be using data. Some of those people might not realise they're using it, but we want everybody to be using it and getting value from it. I would say that when I joined Specsavers, when I went around the organisation, we had a couple of groups of I suppose, opinions in the organisation. One of those groups was in complete despair. And when I joined 3.5 years ago and I went to speak to them, they basically said, I really think data can add value, but I don't believe that you're going to get anywhere with it. I don't think that you're going to be able to help us. We really, really want to do analytics. Those guys are ultimately now our advocates. We've got over 150 people utilising the platform. It's not that we've gone out and we've pushed the platform. People have actually come to us. And I do think that, sometimes with influencing, if you push too hard, people start to pull away. Our strategy is much more softer. We effectively just go up to people and go, look, this is some cool stuff that you might be able to do, and we've got loads of training programs that might help you to do it. If you're interested, give us a call. And pretty much off every single presentation we do, lunch and learns, or things across the organisation, we have more people wanting to sign up, more people wanting to do our training courses. We've had people who've said, no, I don't want you to add my data to the lake, it's my data, and then a year later call me up and go, why is my data not in the lake? And I think that, I do think sometimes the softer approach and effectively going where the enthusiasm is in the organisation can help you go faster. And I think if you've got a few initial advocates who really want to take a bite at the cherry, then they start to advocate for you. And I think that is far more powerful than you advocating for yourself.
Yeah, we had the same thing. Champions in the company has been the way to go for us. When we released our capability flex around marketing, we kind of we had a lot of marketing stakeholders presenting what they could do now. And what happened is the first person that came in was commercial and said, why am I not on the list? Why am I not the next one? And it was like, well, you tell us, we'll do it. But we'll work with you to get there. But I think the advocate, having champions and advocate across the companies is going to get you further. I mean, we can say how great we are, but if I say it, it's less powerful than if somebody else says it. So.
Great. I think we have one more for this side.
Thanks. Ellen, this question is for you. You plotted Specsavers on the maturity scale at 2. I just wanted to understand if you can share what the biggest blocker or enabler is for the the progress or the growth for Specsavers on that maturity scale. And if I can add another question to that is, how often do you review this, your BI strategy or data strategy against your maturity scale? Thanks.
So we only put the maturity scales together probably about 6 months ago, so we haven't really shifted too much. But we did put a point on there to say where we wanted to be in 5 years, in 3 years' time, which is about, I think, 5. I think I placed us on the maturity scale in 3 years' time. The biggest blockers, there are probably a few. I think that ultimately, as I said before, I think I couldn't be prouder of the team and actually the job that they've done over the last 3.5 years. I think they have made a huge amount of impact. And I think that if that wasn't the case, there is no way we would have been given sign-off to recruit as quickly as we have been to go from 5 to circa 60. But saying that, I think that, we're a large organisation, we're a global organisation, we've got a lot of siloed ways of working, we've got a lot of historic legacy platforms, and, things take time. And I think that there are always going to be people that are not really with you, not completely behind what you're doing. Wanting to do their own, follow their own path. I think that I'm a big believer in, and this is difficult, and don't always necessarily completely do it, but the aim ultimately for me is to always focus on the outcome and worry less about how I get there. If I can get somebody to agree in the organisation that actually we both want the same thing, then actually releasing a little bit of control about how someone else wants to do it is kind of fine. But I think that's sometimes hard to take on board, but I do think gets you there faster, ultimately.
Great. Well, we're at 9:59, so I know some of you, there's probably some burning questions out there, but hopefully you can spot Helen or Clemence later today. But thank you very much for everything that you shared. I've certainly learned a lot. I hope the audience did too. And yeah, I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Thank you for coming.